Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to our many friends and business partners who are joining from more than 140 countries across 6 continents. Welcome to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce Global Forum focusing on economic recovery. First, let me thank our sponsors, Amazon, Google, and UPS, for making this remarkable gathering possible. The fact that we're convening this way, virtually, globally, and by the thousands, is evidence of the transformation that will mark this point in our shared history. We now join a small number of generations that have collectively experienced disruption on a global scale. For some of us, that disruption has meant losing loved ones. For others, we've lost jobs, opportunities, businesses. We know that in some parts of the world, some of you are experiencing great devastation even as we speak, and our hearts go out to you. We'll talk about that disruption and that acuity of the situation later in the program. But for the moment, focusing on the recovery, I think we have to say that when the pandemic recedes, and it will, and when the recovery is widespread, and it must be, our gift to history could be a vibrant new era of innovation that solves global challenges and growth that lifts countries and communities everywhere. A few years ago, the Canadian psychologist Steven Pinker authored a fiercely optimistic book called Enlightenment Now. In it, he wrote, if news outlets truly reported the changing state of the world, they could have run the headline, "Number of people in extreme poverty fell by 137,000 since yesterday." And they could have run it every day of the last 25 years. That, of course, was before the scourge of the pandemic and its economic fallout. There are significant gains to recover and much more progress to be made, particularly in the parts of the world where the pain and the suffering of the past year remain acute. At the U.S. Chamber, we are fiercely optimistic that better days lie ahead for all of us. All the factors that led to human progress in the years preceding COVID and during COVID will usher in the bright new era that should follow. Human ingenuity, free enterprise, private sector innovation, open economies that allow for the movement of talent and commerce and ideas, and the right balance of public policy and business leadership. These will be the pillars of a dynamic, sustainable, inclusive, and resilient global economy driven by business with the help of government for the good of people everywhere. How do we get there? It starts with the recovery, which remains fragile. In the US, thanks to a precedent-shattering collaboration between companies on both sides of the Atlantic, supported and aided by our partners in government, more than 35% of our population is fully vaccinated. We're getting back to health and back to strength. Our economy is poised for a great resurgence, signaled by 6.4% growth in the first quarter. But this trajectory is not a foregone conclusion. The wrong policies from government could stop the US economic recovery in its tracks. That's why the Chamber is fighting back against proposals such as raising corporate tax rates to the highest in the developed world, which would disincentivize inbound investment. And it's why we're fighting for policies to rebuild our infrastructure, welcome global talent, and enable our workforce to get back on the job and drive our economy forward. A strong US recovery is needed to help lead the global recovery. We also understand that the pandemic won't be over anywhere until it is over everywhere. No nation will truly get back to strength until all nations get back to health. The U.S. Chamber has teamed with the Business Roundtable and leaders of more than 50 top American companies to form the Global Task Force on Pandemic Response, a public-private partnership to coordinate relief for COVID-19 surges globally. Currently, the task force is working closely with partners to address the worsening crisis in India. The calamity unfolding there and in other parts of the world is a sobering reminder that the pandemic is far from over. A little later this morning, we'll hear a lot more about this work directly from the leaders of the 3 founding co-sponsors of the task force. We'll also hear from some of the government officials who are working closely with industry to defeat the coronavirus here and abroad. As the world emerges from the pandemic, the recovery will give way to rebuilding. And this morning, I'd like to briefly outline 3 priorities for rebuilding a stronger global economy oriented to the future. The first is to strengthen international trade and investment and facilitate global commerce through secure, sustainable, and efficient supply chains. The open exchange of ideas and goods, services, data, and people have played a central role in driving the astonishing reduction in extreme poverty worldwide from 36% in 1990 to less than 10% before the pandemic. Several hundred million people have since slid back into poverty, and to help lift them up, economies would be smart to open themselves up to opportunities in markets around the world. It's not lost on us here in the US that 95% of the world's customers live beyond our shores. America is open for business. We're eager to ink new trade deals and strengthen established alliances, and we are committed to the multilateral organizations that support global trade and public health. We must also be strong in standing against policies at home and abroad that undermine openness and penalize job creators. The US must work with our allies to stand up to China while also pursuing new negotiations with Beijing to protect our intellectual property. On trade, when we stand still, we fall behind. And as we consider how to reboot the global economy and retool for a more sustainable future, America cannot sit on the sidelines. The second priority is technology. The pandemic sure proved in new and astonishing ways how technology improves our lives, keeps us connected, and drives commerce. Many small businesses shifted their focus from brick and mortar to digital, enabling them not only to serve their communities, but to export to countries around the globe. Large businesses are increasingly using tech platforms to conduct global services trade. As a result, trade in services is growing 60% faster than trade in goods, and digital tools are opening up global markets for small businesses in unprecedented ways. The potential for people, communities, and economies to significantly boost growth through digital commerce is vast. To realize that potential, we must set policies that allow data to flow and innovation to flourish. But there are protectionist forces seeking to close off and strangle this incredible source of dynamism. So we must fight back against restrictions on data flows, regulations that stifle innovation and investment, and policies that undermine intellectual property, all of which threaten the global economic recovery. The third priority is sustainability, and it is part and parcel of the innovation I just discussed. In fact, sustainability isn't possible without innovation. For years, business has been driving the innovation and investment needed to solve global environmental challenges. I'm proud to serve on the board of AGCO, a leading US-based global agriculture company. It's exciting and encouraging to see firsthand how business is leading cutting-edge sustainable solutions for farmers. These farmers are feeding a hungry world as the global population is on track to reach 10 billion people in 2050. When it comes to climate change, businesses are leading the development and financing, building and operation of the solutions to address this challenge. Private industry has already invested billions and set their own ambitious climate goals. Thanks to private sector leadership, the US is now among the world's leaders in reducing emissions. And the US Chamber is proud of the steps our members are taking. We also recognize the role of government. Tackling climate change will require both the ideas and investment of American enterprise and smart bipartisan policy solutions. We're committed to advancing both. Last week at the B7 CEO Summit, we had a really insightful discussion with business leaders on different continents about how business can work cooperatively across those continents to address this global challenge. We also know that our world is still reliant on traditional sources of energy, as demonstrated by the fuel shortages that were caused by the cyber attack on a critical pipeline in the US. Achieving our desired reductions in greenhouse gas emissions while also meeting the world's growing demand for power will require new technology, and the private sector will have to lead the way. Of course, all of us know that sustainability is about more than energy and the environment. It's about equitable, enduring, broad-based growth. It's about equality of opportunity and bringing in diverse voices, viewpoints, and backgrounds. It's about building resilient economies that will lift people up and enable them to live secure, stable, fulfilling lives. And it's about fostering generations that are successively better off. All of that comes down to people putting their talent and ideas to work through employment. which allows businesses to invest and grow and innovate, which drives stronger economies that create more opportunities for people. This virtuous cycle is possible only through free enterprise. It is free enterprise that drives solutions to global problems and innovations that improve life and advance mankind and womankind. And therein lies our opportunity in this moment in history to create a brighter collective future for all of us. We look forward to working with our partners in business and government around the globe to do just that. So time permits me only to scratch the surface on a few of our many global priorities. Fortunately, we're going to be able to deep dive into these and other pressing topics over the course of this two-day forum and to bring leading voices from the global community into the conversation. Today and tomorrow, we're thrilled to host CEOs and senior executives from some of the world's most exciting and innovative companies, current and former government officials, experts in all facets of international affairs and policy, and heads of state and government. We are grateful that the 78th Secretary of the Treasury of the United States, Janet Yellen, will offer up remarks to help open this global forum. And you'll also hear from leaders of 3 regions of the world, President Kenyatta of Kenya, President Duque of Colombia, and Prime Minister Lee of Singapore. It is now my honor to turn things over to Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen for a message on how the Biden administration is engaging with the world. Thank you very much.